Good afternoon, this is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. NATO foreign ministers are gathering in Brussels tomorrow as allies opposing Russia's war effort face growing pressure to coordinate support for Ukraine and prepare for next year's summit. Our correspondent in Brussels, Alex Adier, has more.
Well, the primary purpose of this meeting of NATO foreign ministers was to get together and continue to support Ukraine. We expect an announcement from Poland and others that they will be allocating 500 million euros worth of military support for Ukraine through the PURL mechanism. That, of course, allows NATO allies to buy American equipment and get it quickly to Ukraine to support its defense against Russian aggression. But naturally, as you'd expect, this meeting overshadowed by those peace negotiations by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the presidential envoy and son-in-law of Donald Trump, going to Moscow to have discussions with Vladimir Putin. That peace plan, of course, may also have implications for Poland, as it will be, if a peace deal is agreed, a key logistics hub for any European monitoring forces, any military troops nearing the border with Ukraine to be positioned at a military base in Poland. Of course, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General, giving a press conference in the last few hours, was pushed repeatedly. What does he know about the peace plan? What can he tell us about what peace might look like in Ukraine? This was his answer.
Everything I say about the peace process might not be helpful, so the less I say about it, the better it is. But this is just to make sure that you understand, and that, of course, also coordinating closely with the Americans, we make sure that this is a separate issue to be dealt with.
So the Secretary General of NATO there being very cautious and not saying too much, if anything, about this peace plan, because it is firmly in the hands of the United States, of the Ukrainians trying to negotiate a just peace for Ukraine. Some doubts, of course, that the US could really carve its own path, pushing European partners away from really knowing the details of this deal. That's what diplomatic sources told TVP World, that although they are trying to get answers from the US, for now some of the details remain unclear. All they do know is that if a peace deal is agreed, Poland will play a role in the logistics of any enforcement, and clearly NATO allies are keen to know more about this peace plan. In Brussels, I'm Alex Adier for TVP World.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said he plans to allocate 86 million euros from the Polish Foreign Ministry Fund for the PURL initiative, a NATO tool used to buy American weapons and speed up deliveries to Kyiv. The minister said Poland's contribution will be matched by 4 other countries, though he did not name them, other than noting that one will be Scandinavian. The funds come from reserve money Poland was supposed to release, but Hungary blocked inside the European Peace Facility. Diplomatic sources at NATO told TVP World that North Atlantic Council members held an informal meeting on Monday to seek more details about the U.S. peace deal between Kyiv and Moscow, with Washington reluctant to share more. Sources said the meeting showed that if Ukraine and Russia reach a peace deal, Poland would become a key hub for allied peacekeeping forces from the United Kingdom, France, and the Netherlands. Those troops would be based at a NATO installation in Bydgoszcz. Finland and Sweden are urging stronger U.S. involvement in future security guarantees for Ukraine. Speaking in Helsinki, Prime Ministers Orpo and Kristersson emphasized that only major powers can provide the backing needed for a credible peace deal, with Washington seen as essential to long-term stability.
We continue our work to prepare security arrangements, which is different than guarantees. But it's clear that guarantees can come almost only from the bigger countries, and US participation is needed. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, we had another meeting with the Coalition of the Willing just the other day, and I think there is a status quo in terms that many European countries are preparing for what they could offer, what they could deploy, even though I think security guarantees sometimes lead the thoughts in the wrong direction. I think the biggest and most important security guarantee is basically a strong Ukrainian armed forces, which we can help continue being strong. We can train them, we can equip them. That needs money, therefore the frozen assets is such an important topic. So I think that's the kind of security guarantee we are mainly talking about. And my reading is that all the European and Asian countries that are, or other partners in the world, who are willing to offer security arrangements also includes the US in that. So there needs to be a US commitment to make this credible.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is at the Dutch Parliament addressing the Parliament as we speak. Let's take a look at the live footage right now.
Thank you for your attention to Ukraine and for the fact that Ireland has truly stood the test of time. Thank you for providing home and protection to our people when they needed it most once the war broke out back home. While in some societies the fatigue from news about the war is growing, we do not feel that your voice, the voice of Ireland, is turning quieter. Thank you. Our peoples, Ukrainian and Irish, are among the few in Europe who spent centuries fighting for the right to remain themselves. And now, for nearly 4 years of Russia's full-scale war against our people, our children, the most devastating war for freedom in Europe since World War II, Ireland has stood firmly and clearly for our independence and for a just end to this war. So thank you for your steadfast support for these years of standing with us. And thank you for not losing faith in us. Just as we do not lose faith that the day will come when we will welcome all our friends to Ukraine in peace, and when we will welcome home all our people who were forced to flee back to a peaceful Ukraine back home.
We'll bring you the update of this address in the coming hours. In the meantime, back to our usual programming. The European Central Bank will not act as a backstop for the 140 billion euro loan for Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. The report lands as the European Commission and EU member states try to find a way to use the disputed frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine's defense.
Time is running out for Ukraine. As the third year of the full-scale invasion nears its end, Kyiv needs money, and fast. The EU wants to provide the embattled ally with a 140 billion euro loan using frozen Russian assets. But this plan hit a snag on Monday as the Financial Times reported that the European Central Bank would not act as a backstop for the loan. Involving the bank was a way to make the plan legally watertight and address the concerns raised by Belgium, where the assets are being held.
I want answers on every question I asked. I want a maximum of legal certainty. I want solidarity. I don't think this is an unreasonable position.
In the Commission's plan, the ECB would act as the lender of last resort. This could prove useful if Russia in the future mounted a legal challenge to the fact that its assets have been spent. If successful, all member states would be on the hook. But raising 140 billion quickly for repayment could put the market under stress. This is where ECB would step in, lending the required amount to Euroclear, the Belgian institution where assets are held.
I don't in any way diminish the risks or the worries that Belgian government has. When we had the discussions in the European Council, I mean, everybody was saying that we are ready to shoulder the risks and the burden.
According to the Financial Times, the bank's internal assessment is that such a move would amount to so-called monetary financing, or the central bank covering member states' debts. This practice is banned under European treaties, and so the bank's experts concluded that backstopping Ukraine's loan would violate existing law. The ECB position puts even more pressure on the European Commission to put forward a watertight loan proposal before European leaders meet in Brussels on December 18th.
And that concludes this edition of World News, but do stay tuned as we have news in depth coming up next, starring Ashim Kumar, our very own news editor Matthew Day, as well as our correspondent Alex Kadir. Stay tuned to TVP World.